Welcome back to the 6 in 6 series of how to run a six-figure coaching business in 6 minutes. Today, we're going to discuss one of the main features of a coaching program, which is the check-in. You may not call it a check-in, but basically your coaching feedback with your clients. That sounds like a really, really dull thing to be doing, but it's probably one of the biggest cornerstones that people have issues with clients not checking in or not seeing value from them or things like that. So we're going to go through a really key set of points that you need to make sure that you have within your check-ins in order to maximize your client results. Okay, so 4 things with check-ins, all right, that you really need to be clear about. The first one is making sure that there is a clear procedure for check-ins and that your potential client knows exactly what they are supposed to be doing. Now, ways you can accomplish this is by having a check-in guide, which is what we used to have in our business. Something that may be very useful is for you to actually jump on a call with the client for their first check-in and walk them through actually filling in the check-in document so they understand the level of detail that you're going to need in order to give them the level of feedback that they're going to want. All right. So the first thing would just be have a really clear procedure. Make sure you explain everything literally so like a child could understand it, like how you want them to weigh themselves, what time you want them to weigh themselves, how you want all the feedback and things like that, in what way, in what format, all right? Be really, really clear. Give them either a worked example of like, this is what an amazing check-in looks like, or just walk them through it yourself. Are the 2 options that you've got to make sure that that's crystal clear. The second thing is automate as much data collection as you possibly can. Now, this will come from leveraging software, which we'll do in another video once we've done it, or if we have already done it by the time this goes up, I'll put a link up here. If that's missing, there'll be a date in the comments telling you when that's coming. All right. Linking up with software for your check-ins is really useful because lots of people are very busy. Lots of people already have jobs that require them to do shit like collecting data that they don't really enjoy doing. Having to then track their weight and track their calories and track their steps and stuff and enter it into another form. I know it doesn't seem like a lot, but it can be enough to put someone off doing something correctly. All right. If you have it all linked up, like phones now track all of this, okay? If you have native integrations with these things that pulls people weight from their Scale app, pulls people's nutrition from MyFitnessPal, pulls people exercise data from your coaching app, for example, tracks all of this stuff for them as they are doing it, then you can focus on the more important stuff, which is the qualitative stuff, how they feel, how they are, how confident they are in the program, any challenges that they've got, what they're struggling with, what they're enjoying, what they're not enjoying. So that's where you can get into the nitty-gritty of the coaching. Try and make the check-in process more qualitative for them and try and track as much of the quantitative stuff, which is like the detailed number-based stuff, as you can without them having to do it. The third thing with making sure that check-ins are done to a good standard is making sure that the client gets a good standard of feedback back from them. If a client feels like you're rushing or they're not getting the level of detail, or they're not even the level of detail, but they're not getting the level of advice that they need back from the check-in, they're not going to see the benefit of doing the check-in to them, okay? The check-in should benefit both parties. It should give you the data that you need to make the coaching changes, and it should give them the feedback that they need in order to know where they're best to put their efforts next week. Okay. If you don't have a solid feedback system that the client feels they get value from every time they fill in the feedback form, you're going to have poor check-in rates. So make sure that you deliver the value that you need to in your check-in feedback and give them actionable things to work towards so they feel like they are getting the next step of the journey every week when they fill in that check-in. It's going to mean that they're way more likely to do it, and it's going to mean that if they do miss it, it's going to be a very rare occurrence that you can just catch them up on. The final thing I would do is make sure that your check-ins are directly linked to their progression in the program, okay? So the client needs to see how the check-in leads to the feedback, and the feedback you give leads to actual tangible changes in their results, okay? If you're just giving them surface level feedback, for example, and they're not, or even just, motivating them, they're not seeing where the changes that you're making within those check-ins are impacting their results, they're not going to keep doing them, okay? if you get in a habit of like, great, the program's good, mate, everything's going well, just crack on next week. Eventually, they're going to take matters into their own hands and think, well, I feel like everything's gone all right this week, so I don't need to do the check-in because I know what he's going to say. You're just going to say crack on, and I know to crack on, so I don't need to do the check-in. You need to make sure that every single check-in, there is something that actually affects the results of the person. So if they are handling everything brilliantly and things are moving perfectly, maybe tweak things a little bit, turn things up a notch, like push them through the program. I think if they don't see that they're getting actual results-based feedback from the check-ins, then people are just going to clock out. Even if the stuff that you give them, even if the feedback is detailed, if it doesn't tangibly lead to them performing better in the program, they're not going to see the value in it. So that would be the final thing that I would make sure. So make sure they are clear on what they're supposed to be doing. Make sure you automate as much of the data tracking as possible. Make sure that you provide a detailed level of feedback in the check-in, and make sure that that detailed level of feedback actually leads to improving their results and doesn't just complicate the process further. If you get those 4 things right, you'll never have a problem with check-ins again. And if you want to know more about what you need to put in a coaching program to make it the best ever, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification, and I will see you next time.